There is far more bad than there is good in the James Gunn Superman film, but there is good. Indeed, I would go so far as to say it does some things brilliantly, while other things truly awful, and your mileage on this film will vary on what you put value in as a viewer. What you enjoy. If you need a consistent plot and correct power scaling and cause and effect that makes sense with few distractions from the main characters and world, you will hate this film. But for me, as a massive Superman fan, I actually don't need too much for me to like a Superman film. What it needs to do is depict Superman right, and if done so, it's much easier for me to ignore or not get as distracted by some really dumb things in the plot. Well, I'm delighted to say that the James Gunn Superman film does this. Of course, it would have been so much better if the story carrying this rendition of Superman wasn't utterly retarded, but at least, even though completely stupid, the story serves well enough as the vehicle for the characters to shine. The performances and characterizations of Lex Luthor, Lois, and Superman were great, in spite of me not liking Superman's costume, or that Dave Cornsweet doesn't have the comic book physique on display that Henry Cavill had. Also, Henry Cavill was robbed, and he could have been one of the very best Superman if just given better scripts. But this Superman's character might be the second best one depicted in feature film, the best being Christopher Reeves. They got Superman right, which is the most important part of a Superman film, and as a result, I really liked it, in spite of the terrible plot, which I will explain in the spoiler section of this review. But we're not at spoilers yet. This Superman is very human. The film goes out of its way to tell you this, but it's actually supported by the fact that instead of gaslighting the audience and telling you contradictory things about a character, compared to what they do on screen, Superman's actions in this film all throughout it confirm that he is a very human person, with the same insecurities, assumptions, and flaws, while also still being the Boy Scout he is supposed to be. He doesn't swear and even uses clean language like gosh darn and things like that. He goes out of his way to save even animals and tries to defeat his enemies in the most humane way possible. His goal is to save people and do good, and doesn't always understand the ramifications of these actions, but is determined to press onwards doing good regardless, following his own conscience. People hating him in spite of his best efforts bothers him. He tries to hide it but fails at that, and has trouble in his relationship with Lois. He has pure intentions and is determined to fight even when injured or the odds are against him, because that's what he knows he should do, even if it kills him. As a result, this is not only a good Superman, this is a great Superman. Indeed, I'll go so far as to say one of the best, whereas the plot is amongst one of the worst. Hence why I can see this film as both really good and utterly terrible. And even though I love this rendition of Superman, it is not to say it is perfect. No, it's not. Superman has been considerably depowered in this film, and his powers are very inconsistent. He struggles to lift things you would expect Superman to be able to handle with ease. One villain in particular he should be able to take out with a single punch. And, minor spoiler here, but it's at the very beginning of the film and it's shown in the trailers, the film literally begins with Superman's defeat. He is far from the indomitable hero he is supposed to be. He's actually very domitable. Also, kryptonite is not nearly as deadly as it should be. Again, just more inconsistencies. Now, at least there is no overt wokeness in the film. Unlike what the online discourse seems to have implied, there's no message about immigration, but one part of the film could be interpreted as an analogy of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. As one of the most outspoken haters of Krypto, because I think the idea of a superdog from Krypto is dumb, I can say that the dog doesn't ruin the film. He plays a very pivotal part of it, and I'm still not convinced that was the best choice. Krypto can be quite distracting at times, and depending on whether you're a dog person, you'll either love or hate Krypto's part in this film. Regarding the comics, Krypto has multiple origins, some of them that I can accept much easier, like for instance Krypto being an experiment made by Brainiac, but it isn't explained in the film exactly where Krypto comes from. Apart from that, his ownership is a bit flexible, and Superman has kind of adopted him for a time. For me, I was kind of neutral on Krypto, but at least they utilized some of Krypto's abilities in parts of the film, as I've always said they should. If Krypto exists in this world, Superman would obviously get him to help because the dog is insanely powerful. The film also shows that this isn't always ideal because Krypto is actually a bad, untrained dog and could do as much damage as help. So for me, Krypto didn't add anything special to the film or detract too much, and it seems to feature such a prominent role, almost to manipulate people who like that kind of thing with a cute animal to make them, like the film more. In regards to the world, I actually quite liked it, where it very much establishes that nearly anything is possible here. Some things that are absolutely dumb, while others having promising potential, making it fertile ground to introduce all the new heroes we love going into the future. Overall, I would say this film has more bad than it has good, but if you can ignore the bad or simply don't notice it as much, there is definitely enough to latch onto here to enjoy it. I give this film, because of so many of the dumb plot points, about a 3 or a 4 out of 10, even though I personally like the film. And now let's get into the spoilers where I can explain just how retarded this plot really is. So, the story is wholly driven by Lex Luthor's desire to kill Superman. That is revealed later on in the film. They think Lex wants to kill Superman so Superman doesn't prevent the invasion of one country to another, but Lex actually says, no, that's a byproduct. He orchestrated the invasion to justify or set up a situation where he can kill Superman. Literally, every instigating plot is caused by that desire. Now, depending on how Lex actually wants to do this, affects how dumb his plans really are, because Lex has multiple opportunities to kill Superman throughout this film, and he doesn't. I'm not kidding. Let me explain one, which of course goes into mega spoilers, final warning. Lex has cloned Superman and called him Ultraman. Ultraman is actually stronger than Superman, and on top of that, Lex is feeding him commands with the perfect maneuvers and counters to fight Superman, which basically makes him constantly dominate Superman in most encounters where they fight. And as a result, Superman gets beaten. The film literally begins with Superman fleeing in defeat, crashing in the snow, having lost to Ultraman, who's actually in disguise as another hero from another country. Now, to explain that, there's a little backstory. So, just before the beginning of the film, a country whose name I forgot, so let's call them Not Russia. They tried to invade its neighboring country, whom I also forgot the name of, so let's call them, Not Ukraine. Superman recently stopped Not Russia from invading Not Ukraine, and Not Russia is angry with Superman and has set their own metahuman to fight him, which is actually Ultraman in disguise, because Lex has orchestrated this entire invasion that at first is presumed so he can get half of the country that overtakes, but no, it's to lure Superman to intervene to make the world governments, particularly the American government, to want to detain Superman, who is now messing and interfering with political conflicts. This, supposedly, would give Lex Luthor the okay to capture him, interrogate him, and ultimately kill Superman. But why does Lex need the government's permission when he can just send Ultraman in disguise to kill Superman? Unless he wants credit, and to discredit Superman in the process, but the film isn't actually clear about that. It is very clear that Lex wants to kill Superman. That is his ultimate goal. And even at the beginning of the film, he kind of has already discredited Superman quite a bit by luring him into that conflict, even though anyone with half a brain would see that Superman was trying to do the right thing. But the reactions of the people in the film towards Superman are very inconsistent and sometimes brain-dead stupid. And as I mentioned, he literally does lure Superman into a fight with Ultraman in disguise, and Ultraman defeats Superman twice, but Lex calls him off instead of simply achieving what he wanted right then and there. And that may be because he wanted to discredit Superman further, but then Lex Luthor has an opportunity to kill Superman a little later after he's been fully discredited, and Lex simply doesn't. Switching back to Not Russia, remember how Not Russia is mad that Superman threatened them and forced them to stop invading Not Ukraine? But they reveal that they have a metahuman fighting on their side that is more powerful than Superman. He literally defeats Superman, and no one questions why not Russia didn't use that metahuman in the invasion, or to stop Superman from stopping them, or using the metahuman to start the attack anew. Now, we know it's because Lex controls Ultraman, but this is a very obvious and important question that anyone with a brain should be asking. Where did that metahuman come from, and why is not Russia afraid of Superman if they have him? But everyone decides to be retarded and forget about that. Also, Superman could have used Krypto to fight the not Russian metahuman or the kaiju several times, which would have been quite useful, and he doesn't. And so Krypto, although sometimes he's utilized because he's very powerful and could help Superman, and other times he's not. So during the fight with Ultraman in disguise, no one is running away from these super-powered beings wreaking havoc. Even when the kaiju is attacking, no one's actually trying to run away. It's only until the final fight where an evacuation order is given. I would think a giant kaiju or interdimensional imp would make people want to evacuate. Oh yeah, there is an interdimensional imp in this film, which Superman just basically sits by and does nothing, while others fight it because he feels they can handle them, and I did not like that part in the film, because what guarantee does Superman have that they would be able to handle this interdimensional imp? All my worries about what we saw in the trailer is actually confirmed. Superman just sits by while people are kind of fighting for their lives to stop this monstrous being, with him just kind of shrugging, saying, yeah, they'll be alright. With all the praise that I've given how they've depicted Superman, that moment in the film was actually, for me, one of the points where they contradict his character quite strongly, in my opinion. He actually had no guarantee that they would be able to handle it. Sometimes monsters whip out a mega, attack or something like that, and it takes a certain amount of time for the other heroes to subdue this monster, where Superman could have probably taken it out in a second, potentially saving thousands of lives by nullifying the threat much sooner. I hated that moment. But going back to the beginning of the film, instead of having Ultraman just kill Superman right then and there, which he could have done, he simply gets him to mess up Superman to force Superman to retreat to the Fortress of Solitude, where the Engineer, another one of Lex Luthor's lackeys, follows Superman to discover the Fortress of Solitude's location, because Lex needs to find something in the fortress to discredit Superman, to get the government to hire him, Lex Luthor, to detain Superman so he can kill him, even though he could have already killed Superman just before. Do you see how stupid this is? Instead of killing Superman at the beginning, Lex uses it as a distraction to set up a convoluted set of events so he can kill Superman a little later with the government's permission, even though when he finally does get the Engineer to try and go for the ultimate killing blow towards the end of the film, it didn't really look like Lex had the go-ahead from the government then. Lex is able to break into the Fortress of Solitude because Ultraman is a clone of Superman and has Superman's DNA, so yeah, that makes sense enough, but I have to say, I like the reason in other adaptations where the Fortress of Solitude actually has a key kind of like underneath a doormat that is just so insanely heavy that only Superman can lift it. I find that a bit, quirky and charming. Anyway, in the fortress, the Engineer accesses the computer and finds the message from Superman's parents and then repairs it because it's damaged. It only has half of the message. And this unironically reveals that Jor-El and Lara, Superman's biological parents, are evil and sent Superman to conquer Earth, to also breed new Kryptonians from a harem that they encourage him to make. And instead of revealing this to be fake at the ending of the film, or like doctored by Lex or anything like that, Mr. Terrific literally confirms that it's genuine and it was impossible to be faked, meaning Jor-El and Lara are actually confirmed evil at this point. I mean, this is so bad that I expect it will be retconned perhaps in a later film or something like that, revealing that it really was fake all along, and that Lex was able to fool everyone. But that's not said in this film. The film actually confirms that Jor-El and Lara are evil, and screw that, I hate it. When that footage is revealed, everyone, and I mean everyone, just believes this, and suddenly all turn on Superman instantly with no nuance or debate. It's ridiculously dumb. I think some might turn on him, but honestly it would take far longer than the movie shows, and there would be loads of people not believing it, or at least waiting for Superman's comment. But everyone turns on him. This is where they're throwing things at him, yelling on him. They all just think he is completely evil, even in light of Superman working hard to save people's lives for several years now. now already. It is just so baffling that no one even bothers to say, that could be fake. Because, everyone just simply believes what the news says when they say, no, this footage is genuine. You sure can believe us. We're so trustworthy, right? The plot gets even worse because due to this footage coming out and the government's now not trusting him and there's a call for his arrest, Superman turns himself in and the government wants Lex Luthor to handle Superman's incarceration with no oversight. No one's kind of keeping an eye on Lex or how to do it or anything like that. Lex has full control, takes Superman to a pocket dimension that he just, managed to make previously in the course of events of this film. And even seeing all the evil that Lex has done up to this point, because in the pocket dimension, this is where we see the army of actual monkeys typing hate against Superman online. Yes, that is a thing. And in case you don't know why that is ridiculous, literal bot farms already exist to crazy sophisticated levels, and they don't need an army of mutant monkeys to do it. But Superman sees that Lex Luthor has been working actively against him, lying about him constantly, sees that he has Krypto in prison, and Superman still does not do anything to stop Lex at this point, break him out. He just submits himself completely to Lex's authority, all the way until he's taken to Metamorpho, who creates kryptonite and incapacitates Superman at that point, even though Superman could have stopped Lex, broken free at any point before then. Lex literally has Superman completely at his mercy, could kill him at any point. And this would be the perfect point that Lex would want to do it because he's just achieved what he wanted to do. Completely discredited Superman. Everyone is now just believing it wholesale that Superman was sent to conquer him. He has permission from the government. This is the ultimate realization of all his plans. And he decides that no, he's going to kill Superman a little later because he wants to interrogate Superman first. But for what reason? He asked Superman who raised him. Why does Lex need to know who raised him? You've already captured him. Knowing who raised Superman might be useful in using that as leverage at Superman to get him, where you want to capture him, but you've already caught him. You literally have his DNA and have cloned him already at this point. Lex has everything he needs, and literally Superman at his mercy. This would be the absolute time where Lex would just kill him and achieve what he wants. But because dumb plot, he decides, I'll let you live. And oh my goodness, he puts Superman in the most retarded prison possible where it is so obvious and easy for him to escape. You see, he forces Metamorpho to make kryptonite to incapacitate Superman by threatening Metamorpho's baby. And okay, yes, that could work, except he keeps the baby in the cells right near them. And Lex literally gives Metamorpho the key to saving himself and Metamorpho's baby, which is Superman. And Lex just expects Metamorpho to keep Superman incapacitated with kryptonite and do exactly what is told and not use Superman to save himself and his own child, which is exactly what he does. It's so bafflingly obvious. It's as dumb as handing the literal key to the cells to the person in prison and expecting them not to escape. Lex, by doing this, is an uncalculable, brain-dead retard. And all of that would have been solved by just having the baby locked away in a location that Metamorpho or Superman doesn't know where they are, and Metamorpho would then never risk releasing Superman because Lex still has his child and could kill him in reprisal for freeing Superman. But by having it the next cage over, it's literally free Superman, save our baby right then, free and they're gone. Great plan there, Lex. You're a genius, mate. After Superman escapes thanks to the help of Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, and Krypto, as well as kind of Lois, tagging along, Lex lures Superman back to Metropolis by opening an interdimensional rift. In between that, Superman is taken to his parents, and there is a really good moment between Superman and his dad. And this is one of the parts of the film I genuinely loved, and it's when his dad just says how proud he is of his son. It's moments like that make me love this Superman depiction. But as I mentioned, Superman is lured back to Metropolis where the Engineer and Ultraman are waiting there to now land the killing blow, even though Lex could have killed him many times before. And his plan here is to use the Engineer to suffocate Superman by flooding his lungs with nanobots. And forget about the fact that Superman could simply sneeze these things out. He literally has super breath that could blow them into orbit, but Superman is incredibly depowered. But, kind of forget about that. Push that to the side, because he ultimately gets the nanobots out of his lungs by flying into orbit and then crashing back down to Earth, which knocks the engineer out, and that deactivates the nanobots, which means all Superman needed to do was knock out the engineer at any moment, and I'm pretty confident that Superman, even in his depowered state, should be strong enough to have knocked out that engineer lady at any point with a single punch. At one point, she's literally clinging onto him, and Superman could just, flick her, and she would be out. But no, he has to go through this convoluted process of flying into orbit, crashing back down, knocking her out, getting the nanobots out of his lungs, and now he has to deal with Ultraman. And he is helped by Krypto in this moment, because Krypto destroys all the observation drones feeding Lex the video feeds, which enables him to control Ultraman to tell Ultraman what moves to use to counter Superman. Did the filmmakers forget that Superman has heat vision and could have literally lasered the drones at any time with ease? But no, forget about that. He's only able to get rid of them thanks to Krypto. It's annoying, because in this instant they depowered Superman again, or forgot about one of his powers just to justify the presence and use of Krypto. And then they don't use Krypto when it would have actually been needed. But with the drones taken out, Superman is able to fight Ultraman on a more even level, but Ultraman is still just as strong, if not stronger than him. But Superman gets lucky and knocks Ultraman into the black hole on the other side of the interdimensional rift. And yes, there's a black hole on the other side of the interdimensional rift. Superman technically almost gets sucked into it when they're trying to escape out of the pocket dimension. And so that was the writers trying to kind of foreshadow, oh, look, black hole, remember that. But Ultraman's defeat is ultimately very anticlimactic and super easy, barely an inconvenience. Superman then goes and captures Lex after Krypto messes him up a little bit. Superman kind of gets exonerated in the public eye, or people's faith in him is restored, thanks to Lex's plan being exposed, because Lex's girlfriend actually had the hots for Jimmy Olsen, for literally no explanation, by the way. She just likes him and literally is willing to betray Lex Luthor, risk her own life, just to get Jimmy Olsen to go out with her. He's not even that much of a player. Girls simply like Jimmy Olsen for no apparent reason in this film. And that is literally how the Daily Planet, Lois, gets the most pivotal information to expose Lex Luthor's plan. It's that dumb. And so Lex Luthor gets arrested, Lois and Superman have a big old kiss, and it's a happy ending. So these are only the most egregious problems that I noticed, which reveal this movie to be a very, very dumb film. But, like I said, I still really liked this depiction of Superman in spite of all this film's many, many problems. It has a kind of light-hearted charm about it that I did find enjoyable. I didn't hate the appearance of Supergirl. I didn't necessarily like them depicting her as a type of drinking party girl, so we'll have to see where that goes, but I think her Supergirl outfit actually looked great. It was more classic in style, and at the very least I'm interested to see what they do with the character, and what they do with this new universe, which at the very least is probably the thing they were wanting to achieve. I actually enjoyed this film more than Man of Steel, and I do think there is enough there for some people to enjoy depending on what you want out of a Superman film. So as always, stay on watch.